mountaineer makes a goal of climbing the top of the Everest. And he toils every day, every night, yes, for months together, and ultimately he reaches the top. How long is he going to stand and be at the top? Maybe for a few minutes, he will take a few pics, maybe an hour or so, and then he'll be back. What if each and every moment of the journey, each and every day, each and every night, he was grumbling all the time, he was crying, he was complaining, and he was just hating the journey? Would it be worth even if he reached the top? What do you think? Absolutely no. So yes, you will definitely reach your goal. But if you do not enjoy this journey, believe me, it will not be worth. Yes, so enjoy this journey, and the more you enjoy it, the more will be the chances that you will reach your goal early. So with that, we start with the infections of the larynx. Now, before we start with the infections of the larynx, we know that the larynx has the major functions of protection of the lower airway. It is for respiration. It helps in swallowing. It is also responsible for phonation. Yes, which means that any condition of the larynx will affect these things. So it will affect the respiration, it will lead to stridor, it will lead to altered voice, right? So it will affect these things. But the important thing to know is that different conditions of the larynx affect all these things differently. For example, if it is a supraglottic condition, the respiratory obstruction which will lead to stridor is inspiratory. In subglottic obstruction, the stridor is biphasic. Yes, so different conditions of the larynx affect these things differently. So the first thing before we start with the conditions of the larynx is to know that how a supraglottic condition will present. What will be the presentation of glottic conditions? What will be the presentation of subglottic conditions? So that whenever any presentation is mentioned to us in the question, just by reading the presentation, we have an idea that this is a supraglottic condition. Yes. Now, if we know that the presentation that is given is of a supraglottic condition, then automatically our DD becomes very less. We are not going to think of a subglottic stenosis. Yes. Similarly, if we have found out by reading the question that this is the presentation of subglottic condition, we are not going to think of any infection which will affect the supraglottis. Yes, so let us first see how supraglottic conditions will present, how glottic will present, and how subglottic will present, right? So then we will start with the infections. Now, the first thing that will be affected whenever there is any obstruction, be it supraglottic, glottic, or subglottic, is the respiration. Now, whenever there is any obstruction in the air, that leads in the pathway of air, that leads to increase of the turbulence of air, and that increased turbulence produces a very high-pitched voice, which is known as high-pitched noise, which is known as stridor. Is that clear? So now let us see when the stridor will be inspiratory, when it will be biphasic, when it will be expiratory. So stridor, what is stridor? Stridor is high-pitched noise. High-pitched noise that is produced by the obstruction of the airways. Now, which part of the airways? Let us see that. Okay. Now, if there is an obstruction in the supraglottis, okay, just consider that there is an obstruction in the supraglottis. Now, what will happen when the patient is breathing? The air is going through his nose, through the nasopharynx, through the oropharynx into the larynx. Yes, it is entering into the supraglottis. Now, when the air enters into the supraglottis, which is narrowed by this obstruction, what will happen? Because of the narrowing, the turbulence of air increases. And we have heard about the Bernoulli's theorem. What is the Bernoulli's theorem? Whenever the air passes through a narrow path, the velocity of air increases, and that increased velocity creates a negative pressure all around and pulls the structure in its vicinity in the path of the air. Which means that when the turbulence will increase because of obstruction of the supraglottis, a negative pressure will be created all around, and that will pull the structures of the inlet in the path of the air, obstructing the airway. Which means that if the obstruction is supraglottic, when the patient is breathing in, that will be the time of maximum obstruction. So stridor will be during inspiration. So stridor in supraglottic obstruction will be inspiratory. It will be inspiratory. Same in glottic obstruction also, it is the same. So it will be inspiratory. It will be inspiratory. Now let us see when the obstruction is at the level of, it is intrathoracic, okay? It is at the level of intrathoracic trachea, this part, right? So this pink thing, this here, from here is the intrathoracic trachea. So if there is any obstruction in the intrathoracic trachea up till the secondary bronchi, okay, now what will happen is during inspiration, when the patient is breathing in, now during breathing in, what happens in the pleura is, in the alveoli, there is a negative pressure because there is less oxygen. So this negative pressure creates a dilatation of the intrathoracic airways. So during inspiration, the air will reach the pleura, it will reach the alveoli, right? But what happens during expiration? During expiration, the intrapleural pressure will increase to push the air out. Now, the increased intrapleural pressure will also apply pressure on this bronchi and the intrathoracic trachea. And if there is any obstruction inside, in these areas, in the intrathoracic trachea and in the secondary bronchi, that will accentuate, it will aggravate the obstruction, this external pressure, and the turbulence will be maximum during expiration. So, whenever there is any obstruction of the intrathoracic trachea up to the secondary bronchi, then the stridor is expiratory. Is that clear? So, if there is obstruction of intrathoracic trachea, thoracic trachea up till secondary bronchi, the stridor will be expiratory. Right? So, what are we left with? Yes, we did the supraglottic condition. What we did was the intrathoracic trachea up till secondary bronchi. What about the subglottis? Yes, do we know that in the larynx we have one cartilage which is a complete ring cartilage. All around there is complete ring. Yes, that's the cricoid. And cricoid forms a part of, yes, it forms a part of the subglottis, which means that if it is complete ring all around, it will not be affected by external pressure. And if there is any obstruction inside, also there is no space for expansion, which means that whether there is inspiration or whether there is expiration, in both the ways there will be stridor. So if there is any obstruction at the level of subglottis as well as cervical trachea, little below the subglottis also, up to cervical trachea, the stridor is biphasic. Is that clear? So if there is any obstruction which is at the level of subglottis plus cervical trachea, then the stridor will be biphasic. Stridor will be biphasic, okay? Also note here, if there is any glottic condition, glottis is the in between. So, superiorly is the supraglottis, inferiorly is the infraglottic, right? That is a subglottis. So, if there is any glottic condition which is going to the subglottis also, yes, so then the stridor can be biphasic also, which means in glottic conditions, the stridor can be inspiratory also. Usually it is inspiratory, but it can also be biphasic. So in glottic condition, it can be inspiratory or it can be biphasic. Is that very clear? Have you understood this? Yes, I have specifically told you this because when I just say that stridor is inspiratory, stridor is expiratory in this and that, then you ask me why it is so. So I hope you have understood this, and just remember this, you will not forget it now. And what about obstruction at the level of the nasopharynx, when there's a large adenoid, when there is nasopharyngeal carcinoma, when there are huge polyps in the nose? Then also a noise is produced while breathing. Is that a high-pitched noise? No, it is a very low-pitched noise. You've heard it so many times. Have you not heard snoring? Yes. So that is a low-pitched noise, and that is not called as stridor. That is called as stertor. So stertor is when the obstruction is at the level of the nasopharynx, means above the larynx. When the obstruction is above larynx, then it is known as stertor. And also, I told you that up to secondary bronchi, there is in intrathoracic trachea and secondary bronchi, the stridor is expiratory. What about beyond that? Yes, so when the obstruction becomes in the alveoli, then the voice that is produced is like a whistling sound, that is wheeze. So if it is in the alveoli, that is beyond. If it is beyond, if it is in the tertiary bronchi, yes, if it is beyond the secondary bronchi, then the voice that is produced is now not known as stridor, it is known as wheeze. So now we are clear absolutely that yes, the larynx has a major role of respiration, and if it is obstructed, supraglottic obstruction will lead to an inspiratory stridor. Glottic conditions, glottic obstructions can lead to both inspiratory or biphasic stridor, and if there is any subglottic obstruction, then the stridor will be biphasic. Right? Which means that if it is given in the question that the patient has inspiratory stridor, are you going to think of a subglottic stenosis? No. If in the question is given biphasic stridor, are you going to think of any infection of the supraglottis? For example, will you think of an acute epiglottitis? Acute epiglottitis, that will definitely affect the supraglottis, the epiglottis, yes? So will you think of acute epiglottitis then? No. So is that very clear? Okay, now let us see what is the other function of the larynx and how the different conditions will affect that function. Yes, so we know that the larynx has another important function of swallowing. Is it? Is the larynx important for swallowing? Yes, larynx is important for swallowing. Each and every time we swallow, the epiglottis moves down to close the inlet of the larynx. Yes or no? Yes. So yes, we saw this when we did the anatomy of the larynx also. So here we have the thyroid. These are the two ala of the thyroid meeting at an angle of how much in males? Yes, 90 degrees. In females, 120 degrees. Good. Okay. So here in the center is attached the epiglottis. And on both the sides of epiglottis, what is this known as? Yes, this is the upper border of the quadrangular membrane. This is known as aryepiglottic fold. Aryepiglottic, why arye and epiglottic? Because on one side is epiglottis, on the other side is arytenoid. Arytenoid sitting on the upper surface of the cricoid cartilage. So if this here is the cricoid and these are the two arytenoids here. I told you one is malformed here. So it is something like this, right? Now this here is the inlet of the larynx. Where's the tongue? The tongue is here. We have the tongue here. The food will come from the oral cavity, oropharynx, and then it has to go behind the larynx into the laryngopharynx, into the hypopharynx. So it has to pass from the over the epiglottis. So at this time, what will happen is epiglottis will fall down to close the inlet of the larynx to prevent aspiration of food. So now the food will pass from over the epiglottis, over the arytenoids, and then it will go into the hypopharynx. So whenever this epiglottis is very infected, swollen, what will happen? Each and every time it falls down to close the inlet of the larynx, this movement is very, very painful. So every time the patient will swallow, even the saliva, whenever he swallows, he will have very severe pain, odynophagia, very painful swallowing. So yes, whenever there is any difficulty in swallowing, don't only think that it can be condition of oropharynx, it can be condition of hypopharynx or of esophagus. Yes, it can be also because of conditions of larynx. And which conditions of larynx will affect swallowing? Supraglottic, glottic or subglottic? Yes, only when the inlet is involved. Only when the inlet is involved, yes, which means that whenever there is painful swelling, painful infection of the, whenever there is infection or swelling of the epiglottis, yes, so whenever there is any infected condition of the epiglottis or of the arytenoids, then in that case, whenever there is swallowing, that will be painful. Is that clear? Okay. Now this I also showed you when we did the anatomy was that whenever there is any obstruction at the level of the supraglottis, at the level of the inlet, whenever the epiglottis is enlarged, it is edematous. What will happen to respiration? There will be stridor. Yes, how will be the stridor? The stridor, I just told you, it will be inspiratory. During inspiration, there will be stridor. And in this patient, if you make the patient lie supine, what will happen? This swollen big epiglottis will fall down. Whenever the epiglottis is enlarged, whenever it is swollen, then it will fall down further because of gravity whenever the patient lies to supine. Yes, so it will fall down and it will further obstruct the airway and the stridor will increase, right? Whereas if this patient, when he lies prone, what will happen? The swollen or the enlarged epiglottis falls in front and this stridor will disappear. This stridor will decrease. Yes, so in other words, if in any patient the stridor is improving or it is worsening on change of posture, then we get the hint that the obstruction is at the level of the inlet. If there is any obstruction at the level of vocal cords or subglottis, will change of posture affect the level of the vocal cords or the subglottis? No, it won't. It won't. So if there is a stridor increasing in supine, decreasing in prone, if the patient is having stridor and he is wanting to sit bending forward, then we get the hint. All these are the indication that the obstruction is at the level of the supraglottis. Have you got that? And what about speech? What about speech? Yes, we know that speech is produced by the vocal cords. Whenever we have to phonate, what happens? The two vocal cords are duct in midline. The subglottic air pressure builds up. When it crosses a particular level, it is released, vibrating the vocal cord. And that vibrations we turn into speech with the help of our articulators that are present in the oral cavity, in the oropharynx, in the pharynx. Yes. So, whenever there is any obstruction at the level of glottis, only then the speech will be altered, which means if the speech is altered, if in the question is given hoarseness, dysphonia, aphonia, anything altered speech, then we know that the obstruction or the condition that has been mentioned is at the level of the glottis, right? Supraglottic and subglottic conditions do not affect the voice. Yes, if the supraglottic mass is a huge mass, okay, if the obstruction in the supraglottis is too much, then in that case, when the air from the vocal cords, the vibrations, when they are coming up through the supraglottis, when they are going up to the oropharynx, to the oral cavity, yes, to the nasal cavity, for nasal resonance also, yes. So then what happens is, then the voice quality changes a little and the voice becomes a little muffled. Is that clear? So in supraglottic condition, the voice can be muffled or it can be normal also. But if it will not be hoarse, it will not be dysphonia, it will not be aphonia, right? So speech in supraglottic conditions will be either normal or there will be muffled speech. Glottic condition, it will always be altered, right? And subglottic condition, speech will be normal. How will be the stridor in supraglottic? Yes, in supraglottic, stridor will be inspiratory. In glottic, it can be either inspiratory or it can be biphasic. Biphasic. In subglottic, it is biphasic, right? And the stridor in supraglottic condition will increase in supine position. Increase in supine position. It will decrease in prone position. So the preferred posture is either prone or bending forward. Bending forward. Whereas in glottic and subglottic conditions, will the posture alter the stridor? No, nothing. Posture will not have any effect in glottic or subglottic conditions. So here, no alteration. Yes, what about dysphagia? Dysphagia, odynophagia, that is seen in which conditions? Only when the epiglottis, the arytenoids, when they are infected, when they are swollen, infected. So this will be seen, this will be present in supraglottic condition. It will be absent in glottic, it will be absent in subglottic conditions. Yes, so which means many a times in the question is not mentioned dysphagia, is not mentioned odynophagia. What is given when it is, you are mentioning about children, what is given is drooling of saliva. What is the meaning of drooling of saliva? Don't just think that the mouth of the child is open, so saliva is coming out. Have you seen that happening normally? You must have seen so many kids. No, drooling of saliva is an indirect indicator that the swallowing is so painful that the child is not even able to swallow his saliva. Is that clear? So if any drooling of saliva is mentioned in the question, that indicates that this child is having odynophagia. This child is having very painful swallowing. So is that very clear? Okay, so now let me ask you, if there is inspiratory stridor with there's a child who has inspiratory stridor and absolutely normal cry. Inspiratory stridor and normal cry. Where's the lesion? Inspiratory stridor, normal cry. Okay, supraglottic. If there is biphasic stridor, but normal cry. Now, yes, if it is biphasic and the cry is normal, means vocal cord is normal, then it is subglottic. Yes, if the voice is hoarse, and at the same time there is either inspiratory stridor or if there is biphasic stridor, if the voice is hoarse, then it is glottic. If the patient presents with acute onset inspiratory stridor, there is drooling of saliva and the patient is sitting bending forward. Are you getting it? Yes, patient has come with inspiratory stridor, drooling of saliva and is sitting bending forward. What is your diagnosis? Supraglottic, glottic, subglottic? It is supraglottic. Is that absolutely clear? And this is what you have to look for when you look for infections, that which is the area that is involved. Yes, so with that now we will start with the infections of the larynx. And so in the infections, we will be doing the conditions which are asked in your exams, right? Okay, so the first condition that very, very important condition that is asked in your exam is acute epiglottitis. Acute epiglottitis. Epiglottitis. Yes, acute epiglottitis is also known as supraglottic laryngitis. Yes, because it involves the supraglottis, so it is known as supraglottic laryngitis. Now, before I tell you anything, I want you to tell me that when will you suspect, or if there is any child of acute epiglottitis, how will be the presentation of the patient? Tell me about the respiration. Yes, acute epiglottitis, how will be the stridor? Very good inspiratory stridor. How will be the voice of the child? Voice of the child. The voice may be normal or it might be a muffled speech. Okay, how will be the swallowing? Will there be drooling of saliva? Will there be difficulty in swallowing? Yes, there will be drooling of saliva. And how will this child prefer to sit? Yes, in the bending forward position. So yes, very good. So you know most of the presentation. And one very important thing that you need to know is when will you think of acute epiglottitis? When these presentation will be given. Along with that, acute epiglottitis is a bacterial infection, and it is a very acute onset presentation. The parents get the child that till yesterday, maybe till evening, the child was perfect. And today morning when the parents have got the child to you, you are seeing that the child is having such a toxic look. The child is breathless, is bending forward and is in stridor. There is drooling of saliva. It is such a toxic look, and you cannot miss that this is a child, preferably the diagnosis is acute epiglottitis, right? So now let us first write this down. So acute epiglottitis, I told you, is a bacterial infection, and yes, this is a bacterial infection. It was earlier caused most commonly by H influenza B. But because of the vaccination, now H influenza cases have gone down, and now next what has emerged is streptococcus. So now the most common cause is streptococcus. And the age is usually from 2 to 8 years. It is a child of 6 months, a child of 1 year. Usually you will not think of acute epiglottitis. It is 2 to 8 years. And the onset is very acute. Yes, I told you that it is acute onset. Yes, so now everything rest you are going to tell me. Quickly tell me, will there be rhinophagia, drooling? Yes, present. Will there be stridor? Yes, what will be the stridor? Inspiratory, expiratory, biphasic. Yes, it will be inspiratory stridor. It will increase in which position? It will increase in supine position, increase in supine. It will decrease in prone position. So the preferred posture is bending forward, and this bending forward, this child will bend forward and he will support his body on his both hands. That is what is typically known as the tripod position. How will be the speech? Yes, speech can be either normal or it can be muffled. And how is the overall appearance? The overall appearance is very toxic appearance. Yes, so here is a child. Yes, exactly, the child is sitting like this. You are having a look at the child is appearing so breathless. The child is in stridor. All the effort is being used in respiration. He's not able to breathe. There is drooling of saliva, and the child is crying. The voice of the child, maybe it is the cry is normal, or maybe it is a very muffled type of voice that is coming out when the child is crying. So now you want to confirm that is this a child of acute epiglottitis? Should we go to examine and see whether the epiglottis is edematous or not? We know this is an acute infection of the epiglottis. So the epiglottis will appear very edematous. Yes, it will appear congested. Bacterial infection, acute infection, so there should be congestion, there should be edema. So should we examine the epiglottis and confirm that yes, this is acute epiglottitis? Always remember, whenever you are suspecting an acute epiglottitis, pharyngeal examination is contraindicated. Don't even think of doing that. Why? Because the moment you will touch that area, the pharynx, you will depress the tongue, and you will try to have a look at the oropharynx or of the larynx. The patient will have laryngospasm. You can lose the patient. Yes, the patient will immediately go into the respiratory emergency, into distress. So do not even try that. What you can do is, yes, you can first secure the airway and then you can examine the larynx. while securing the airway itself, you will be able to examine the larynx, which means that everything for securing the airway should be available at that time if you are examining. Otherwise, pharyngeal examination is not advisable, which means that if you're doing it, it has to be under an ICU or under a OT setting. Is that clear? So how do we then confirm that this is acute epiglottitis? That is by X-ray. Okay, so contraindicated is pharyngeal examination. Pharyngeal examination is contraindicated. And X-ray, what will you see on X-ray? What's the normal appearance of X-ray? Here, just see in this child of acute epiglottitis, what we are seeing on the X-ray. This is the epiglottis appearing like this, right? Now, what is the normal appearance of the epiglottis? Just see, in the normal X-ray, epiglottis appears like a leaf. We know that epiglottis is a leaf-shaped cartilage, whereas now because of the edema, the epiglottis now appears like thumb. Yes, so this is what is known as thumb sign. Thumb sign. This is thumb sign. And yes, you can, under OT setting, if you do the examination while intubation, then you will see this appearance. You will see the edematous edematous epiglottis, and this appearance you will see very commonly in adults in the OPD. Yes, in adults you can do this, you can see this by a laryngoscopy, by a endoscopy or a IL examination. Yes, why in adult you can do this? Yes, because in adults the submucous tissues are not very loose. In children, the submucosal tissues in the larynx are very loose, which means that if the edema occurs, there's a lot of edema. Whereas in adults, the edema is not so much. So in adults, usually the presentation is not stridor. In adults, there is only one complaint, and that is very severe pain and difficulty in swallowing. And always I have seen that patient, when he comes with a complaint, that adult patients, that I am having very severe pain, he's telling that my saliva is also not going down, it's just sitting like this. Even saliva is not going down like that. Yes. And then when you examine the oral cavity, you see the oropharynx, everything appears very normal. Okay, it is that time that you have to think that patient is so much in difficulty of swallowing. Everything is appearing normal. So definitely he is having what? He is having an acute epiglottitis. Don't just think that, okay, hysterical patient, why he is doing so much of drama, nothing is there inside. Yes, don't think that. Usually the moment you will see the IL exam, I've seen many patients who have been just shunned off, that nothing is there, and they had big, huge, very congested edematous epiglottis. Yes, so their patient will not have stridor adults. They will have lot of dysphagia, odynophagia. So this will be the typical appearance. And now, how will you go about managing this child? Yes, what is the management of this child? Yes, so the first management is always in children, always secure the airway. So the first management is secure airway. And this is preferably by intubation. By chance intubation is not possible, then you can go for tracheostomy, but this is the best. Best is intubation. Why? Because you will require it maximum for a day or two. Till the time once you start the IV antibiotics, there is immediate regression of the size of the epiglottis, and you can take off the intubation tube. So always go for a non-invasive, preferably a non-invasive, and that is intubation. By chance intubation not possible, then you can go for tracheostomy. Okay, so you secure the airway. Second, now your aim is immediately start the IV antibiotics. And along with that, we have to reduce the edema that is causing the respiratory obstruction. The infection will take time for resolution. But right now, what is our main concern is the child is in stridor respiratory distress. So we have to reduce the edema. Can you tell me how do we reduce the edema? Anywhere? Yes, steroids. So we give steroids. That is either local or systemic. Local in the form of nebulization or systemic. And yes, also very important here is nebulization with adrenaline. Adrenaline nebulization. What this adrenaline nebulization does, adrenaline will cause vasoconstriction, so it will reduce the edema, and it will also cause bronchodilation. So it will cause vasoconstriction plus bronchodilation. So it will improve the breathing. Bronchodilation. Yes, and along with that, this child has not been swallowing anything. Yes, the child will be dehydrated. So very important is to maintain the hydration. right? So this is the complete management of a child of acute epiglottitis. So have you understood? If you see any question or any patient, any child presenting like this, will you be able to diagnose that this acute epiglottitis? Okay, so a child, a 2-year, a 3-year, a 4-year-old child presents with acute onset fever, inspiratory stridor, and odynophagia and drooling of saliva. Tell me the what the X-ray will show of this patient. Yes, so it has been understood here that you have made the diagnosis. Inspiratory stridor, acute onset fever, drooling of saliva, everything is pointing towards supraglottic. Yes, so yes, acute epiglottitis. What will the X-ray finding? X-ray will be thumb sign. Yes, will you start antibiotic to this patient? Yes, against which organism? Against streptococcus. Yes, okay. So now we have another condition of the larynx, another infection of the larynx, again very commonly asked in your exam, and that is a viral condition. That is croup. Croup is also known as laryngotracheobronchitis. Croup. Croup, also known as laryngotracheobronchitis. Okay. Now I will just tell you one thing, that this is caused by virus. Okay, this is a viral infection caused by parainfluenza virus. Now, if you just know that this is a viral infection, can you tell me a few things? Can you tell me this will be more common or bacterial infection, epiglottitis will be more common? Of course, the viral infections are more common. This is the most common cause of respiratory distress in children and infants. Yes, and if it is a viral infection, we will write all this down. But first, try to understand this. If it is a viral infection, what is usually the presentation? When do you think that this patient is appearing like a viral presentation, this patient is appearing like a bacterial presentation? This is something which you should know, because that will help you avoid indiscriminate use of antibiotics. In your routinely also you develop something and then you are in a doubt whether I should take antibiotic or whether I should not take, for your friends, for your relatives. Yes, so when there is a viral infection, yes, it is usually a generalized infection. So the patient will present with, will running nose, there will be running nose, there will be sore throat, there will be malaise, there will be fever, there will be a generalized involvement. Yes, so that is why it is laryngotracheobronchitis, which means that only one part of the larynx will not be involved, it will be generalized. So the supraglottis, the glottis, subglottic, everything will be involved. Why have I made this a funnel-shaped larynx? Yes, because I have made the larynx of a child. Yes, in infants, the larynx is funnel-shaped. So now what will happen when there is infection of the whole of the larynx? Yes, so will the vocal cords be affected? Will the vocal cords be affected? Yes, they will be affected. So when the vocal cords will be affected, supraglottis will be affected least here. Why? Because supraglottis in children relatively is wider as compared to the subglottis. Yes, so now the because of the involvement of the vocal cord, of the glottis, there will be hoarseness. Yes or no? Am I right? Yes. Now, when the infection reaches the subglottis, this is already a narrow area. So, because of the edema in the subglottis, the subglottic becomes even narrower. What will happen next? Yes, so it is not that the patient was absolutely perfect one day earlier. Next morning, the parents are getting to you with the toxic appearance. It will never be like that. Initially, what will happen? The patient will have running nose, he will have malaise, he will have fever, he will be a little irritable. Like whenever there is any viral infection, cold, cough, yes, all that. So, 3-4 days patient will be having all that, then will develop hoarseness of voice. Yes, and then when the edema goes down, when the edema involves even the subglottic area, now there will be stridor. Yes, so the stridor to start with, when the vocal cord is also involved, that is also relatively narrow area, but subglottis is the narrowest. Yes, so the stridor, then will start the stridor, and the stridor will be inspiratory to start with, and when the subglottis also gets involved, then it will become biphasic. And very, very important, just see the subglottis has got narrowed down, right? So now what it is, generalized condition, it is involved the subglottis also, it's gone down to the trachea also, bronchi also. So whenever there will be coughing, the air is coming from down and it is going through this narrow path to be pushed out from the true vocal cord in the form of a cough. So the voice of this cough will totally change because of the air coming through this narrow path. And what is this typical voice of the cough known as? This is what is known as, it typically sounds like the barking of a seal. Yes, the voice that the seals produce, that is known as barking. So the barking of the seal, it is known as seal-like cough or barking cough. Yes, so because of here, there will also be barking cough. Barking, also known as seal-like cough. seal-like cough. Yes, so have you understood the difference between the presentation of acute epiglottitis and of laryngotracheobronchitis? What will be acute presentation? Will be acute epiglottitis, whereas this will present with same like rhinorrhea, there will be malaise, yes, all these, there will be running nose, there will be fever. It will be a gradual onset, yes, and then there will be hoarseness also. Is there hoarseness present in acute epiglottitis? No, there only supraglottis is involved. Is there cough in acute epiglottitis? Never. Never. Cough is not there in acute epiglottitis. Here there will be typical barking or a seal-like cough. The stridor there in acute epiglottitis is always inspiratory. Here it can be inspiratory or it can be biphasic. Is that very clear? Okay, so whenever these presentation is given in the question, I am sure you're never going to mistake. Don't mistake, because these are questions which you will not believe me, there are so commonly, and these are the catchy words which you just remember. There's no way that you can mistake it. So now let us quickly write this down. So yes, the croup is viral infection and it is caused by para-influenza. It is caused by para-influenza virus, and the age group usually here is a little younger. Acute epiglottitis in 6 months we will not think. Yes, that is after 2 years. Whereas in this viral infection usually affects anybody. Yes, so it is, the age is the earlier age group. It is 6 months to 3 years, and the age, reason not known, but yes, it is seen more common in boys. And the onset is a gradual onset, gradual onset. The speech will be hoarse. There will be hoarseness. Cough is known as barking or seal-like cough. Stridor will be to start with inspiratory, and later on it will become biphasic. Will it change the stridor? Will it change in posture? Will it change in posture? Will it increase in supine? Will it decrease in prone? Yes or no? No, it is subglottic. Posture will not affect it. So it is mainly, the edema is because of the subglottic. The subglottic edema is linked to stridor. That will not get affected because of change in posture. So no change. Yes, and this is the most common cause of acute airway obstruction. Viral things are more common than bacterial. So this is laryngotracheobronchitis. Will there be dysphagia? Will there be drooling? Will this child be drooling? No, the child will be only when in the late stages. After the child has started having the infection, maybe 4, 5, 6 days later on, the child will be very irritable because the child is not able to breathe. Yes, because of the edema in the subglottis. So here the dysphagia will not be present. No, it will not be there. Yes. So here, when you get the X-ray done, what are you likely to find? Will you see a thumb sign here? No. Here what you will see is that the subglottic airway is narrowed, and usually the subglottic airway, how does it appear? This is the false vocal cord, the true vocal cord, like this. Yes. We have the false vocal cord, the true vocal cord, like this. Yes. So normally the subglottic airway appears as if it has got 2 shoulders. Now what will happen is, because of the subglottic narrowing, the airway will become narrowed. It will appear like a pencil tip. It is known as pencil tip sign, or it is known as pencil tip. Just see here how it is, like this. Yes. So this is known as the pencil tip, or it is known as steeple. What is a steeple? Yes, the steeple of the church. You must have seen that. Yes, the steeple of the church. So it is known as steeple sign, or it is known as the pencil tip sign. Okay, so now we have confirmed that this is a child of laryngotracheobronchitis. What will be the management? Yes, the management will be to decrease the edema. The child is in respiratory distress. The child is in stridor. So we want to decrease the edema. So the management will be the same as acute epiglottitis, except for antibiotics we are not using. Yes, because this is viral. So antibiotics we will not give. Rest the management will be same. So now you tell me rest of the management, because I have told you acute epiglottitis. Yes. Yes, we will give steroids. Very good. We will give steroids. That is the main when the child is in stridor. So this is the main management when the child is in stridor. Steroids, either local or systemic, either in the form of inhalation or systemic steroids, or both can also be given, or systemic. Yes, tell me something more to reduce the edema. Yes, adrenaline nebulization. Why we are using? Yes, reduces the edema and causes bronchodilation. Tell me something more. Yes, also what we use here is we will give humidification, we will give hydration. and we use a air here which is known as heliox. Heliox. What is heliox? The name is telling you it is helium plus oxygen. Helium plus oxygen. Yes, it is in the ratio of 70 is to 30 or 80 is to 20. Now helium is a less dense oxygen, so it improves the gas exchange. So it makes the flow more laminar. So that is why this can be used. So this is how you are going to manage a patient of laryngotracheobronchitis. Okay, so now quickly keep your pens down. Okay, was this question asked? Yes, this was a question asked some time back. And the question was a 2-year-old fully immunized child. 2-year-old fully immunized child now presents with acute onset fever, stridor not mentioned inspiratory, expiratory, just stridor and dysphagia. After 2 hours, the child becomes very floppy. In another 2 hours, the child dies. Most probable diagnosis is, first choice, diphtheria. Second choice, foreign body aspiration. Third choice, acute epiglottitis. And fourth is laryngotracheobronchitis. Croup. Can it be diphtheria? Fully immunized? No. Okay. Can it be foreign body aspiration? Foreign body aspiration. Why should there be acute onset fever in foreign body aspiration? Yes? Okay. So we are left with only 2. Acute epiglottitis and croup. What do you think it is? What is the catchy word in the question? Acute onset fever. I will repeat the question. Patient presents with acute onset fever, stridor and dysphagia. In 2 hours, floppy, 2 hours dies. Dysphagia. That will be seen in, yes, supraglottic condition. So the diagnosis here is acute epiglottitis. Wonderful. Yes. So thumb sign is seen in. Thumb sign is in acute epiglottitis. Okay. Steeple sign is seen in. Steeple is seen in croup. Okay. What is the type of cough that is in croup? Cough, that is barking cough, also known as seal-like cough. Odynophagia or drooling is seen in. Drooling. It is an acute epiglottitis. Inspiratory stridor is in. Inspiratory stridor with toxic appearance, with drooling. Yes, that is acute epiglottitis. So this is how these 2 conditions you are going to differentiate. A very acute onset is an acute epiglottitis, whereas a gradual onset will be croup. So this is how you will differentiate. This will how you will diagnose. And when you know this, croup is such a common condition. Acute epiglottitis, that is the second most common in children causing respiratory distress. But you will see that when you go to your ENT or your pediatric OPD, you will now be able to diagnose so many patients and then you know how to manage them. Now, starting with the chronic conditions of the larynx, chronic infections of the larynx, you just have to know one infection, and that is the most common granulomatous condition that affects the larynx. When I talk about granulomatous condition and most common, has something come to your mind? Yes, TB. Yes, TB. TB affects, that is the most common granulomatous condition that affects the larynx, that is TB. And from where does the TB of the larynx arise? Does it arise per se de novo? No, it comes from the larynx. So it is a pulmonary TB. It is secondary to pulmonary TB. So we have the larynx here, and behind this we have the hypopharynx, right? So when the patient is coughing out the infected secretions from the lungs, it goes through the larynx. So if I ask you that which part of the larynx will be affected most commonly, anterior or posterior? Yes, these secretions have to ultimately go into the hypopharynx and they have to be swallowed or they have to be coughed out. Yes, so the part of the larynx that affected most commonly is the posterior part. So most common part affected is posterior. This you have to remember. Rest all the granulomatous conditions of the larynx affect the anterior part first. Leprosy affects which part of the larynx most commonly? Anterior, posterior? Anterior. Yes, leprosy affects which part of the larynx most commonly? Epiglottis, arytenoid? You know anterior, so epiglottis, yes. Rest all affect the anterior. Rest all affect the anterior part. Anterior part. And what will be the presenting features when will you think that this can be a patient of laryngeal TB? What will be the presenting features? The presenting features will be of the pulmonary TB only. Patient will have fever, patient will have low-grade fever, patient will have malaise, patient will have cough, yes, all these things. And when are we going to think that now the larynx has also got involved? Yes, there will be which part affected most commonly? Posterior part. So let us see first that what are the things that will happen in the larynx. we will automatically know what the symptoms will be. Yes. So what will be the symptoms here? What will be the part that will be affected is from the first, the earliest to be involved will be the posterior part, that will be the arytenoid. Yes, arytenoid will be affected most commonly, and they will appear very huge, swollen, and that is what is known as mammulated arytenoid. The next to be involved is the vocal cord. The vocal cord have multiple ulcers over it, and it appears as if a mouse has nibbled it. So it is known as mouse nibbled vocal cord. And later on is also involved the epiglottis, and the epiglottis appears very edematous. It is known as pseudoedema. It is not actually a submucosal edema. That is why it is known as a pseudoedema of epiglottis. Why? Because it is a granulomatous infiltration of the epiglottis which has caused this edema. So this is known as pseudoedema, and then the epiglottis appears like a turban sitting on the head of larynx. So it is known as turban epiglottis, or it is known as pseudoedema. Now TB of nose, ear, or cervical TB of lymph nodes, anywhere, TB, is it usually a painless or painful condition? Even an abscess of the TB, we call it as a cold abscess because it is painless. Yes, TB everywhere is a painless condition. But this is one place where TB is very, very painful. Why? Because what's the part that is involved? The arytenoid. The epiglottis, the part of the inlet. So each and every time the patient swallows, the epiglottis has to move. The food has to pass over the epiglottis, over the arytenoid, and then into the hypopharynx. So that is very, very painful. And this is one thing that is always asked in your exam when a TB is asked, that is a painless condition. Is that true? No, it is very painful. It is extremely painful. Very painful, right? So what we need to know in TB is that it is secondary to pulmonary TB. It affects which part first? It affects the posterior part. What are the findings of TB? These named signs are very, very commonly asked. Tell me what's the appearance of the arytenoid? Mammulated. Of vocal cord? Mouse nibbled. Of the epiglottis? Yes, that is the turban epiglottis. And the very common choice, which is usually the incorrect choice, is that it is a painless condition. Is it painless? No, it is an extremely painful condition. Yes, so how will you manage this patient? You have this patient of TB, and now he has presented to you with what complaint? He has come to you with odynophagia, difficulty in swallowing. He is having hoarseness of voice. And when you examine his larynx, you see dirty appearance. Yes, everything all, you are seeing that the arytenoid is all swollen, the epiglottis is swollen. Yes, you are seeing ulcers over the vocal cord. So how will you confirm? Yes, take a biopsy. You confirm it and start the patient on ATT. So that is what you needed to know in the infections of the larynx. So quickly finish your questions.